Okay, so I have the great pleasure of bringing on Lauren Fischer, an old friend of mine, and just now met Jessi Harper Smith, two amazing athletes in the CrossFit world, and now recently broached the Hyrox competition, which is pretty much why I wanted to talk to you guys. But you started to tell a story and I stopped you. You and I met because you were Lauren, you and Jen, Ryan, and Eric Comodia is his name?
Yeah, Eric Carmody.
Comedy, yeah. And another guy that came out from Kansas City, I think it was. I got you guys together on this project that I was doing with Ryan Fischer. I caught myself when I said that, but anyway. But Ryan Fischer once upon a time got a hold of me and said, hey, look, it would be really cool if I could bring you into this space and create a program that would benefit CrossFitters. And I thought, wow, man, I don't do CrossFit. I mean, I don't think at that point in time, I'd never walked into a CrossFit gym in my life. Now, I did have a training facility, and before CrossFit, we were doing what I would refer to as functional fitness. And so a lot of the state, Olympic lifts, things like this that we did. But anyway, long story short, I agreed to do this because he was very successful in his little thing he was doing, and I thought, yeah, I'll take some of that. So we created a program, and the idea was to see how we can manipulate the cardiovascular system in so that you didn't get punched out, fatigued during a CrossFit competition or through a daily workout. And incidentally, we put a ton of energy into this, and you guys were good enough to come out and be guinea pigs. We did VO2 tests on you on the treadmill, on the rower, and on a ski erg. And what was really interesting about the way we approached it was, aside from looking at the clinical data as it was unfolding, I wanted to know what your perceived exertion was doing. I wanted to know what kind of ranges you had perceptively, rather than just going by these numbers, okay, your threshold's here, blah, 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 blah. And so we took this information and we kind of munched it up, and I was, aside from the four athletes that I worked with that day, we'd done this a few times. But what you don't know is that we finally we launched this thing and launched this program almost a day before all of the CrossFit gyms in the country closed. Try to appreciate the investment of time, money, advertising to launch a program, and boom, all the clubs are closed. Can't go into a gym anymore. Like we don't even know for how long, right? And I'm sure that crushed you for a bit too, right? Just not being able to go to Invictus and do the things you like to do. And anyway, but I'm going to get off this in a minute, but I wanted to share this with you because I thought you'd get a kick out of it. The program did get launched, but it was basically dead in the water. Nobody was using it. You needed a gym to do the workouts, right? And some time passed, and I got a message from a guy in Switzerland. He'd done my program, and this guy, what was interesting about this guy is he's got a master's degree in exercise science. Okay, so he's not just some dude that's kind of working out. He's got some cred. Okay, he says, I don't know what you did. He said, but I followed your program for 8 weeks verbatim. And within those 8 weeks, I could show you the email if you wanted to see it. He got a 285% improvement in his performance in the benchmark tests that we did. 285%. Wow, it was bizarre. Yeah. I mean, I almost didn't believe him. I said, come on. And he said, I don't know what you did. He said, but I'm really interested in seeing what you're going to do next. And again, some time went by, and I finally reached out to this guy. I said, look, I did a podcast with the guy. I brought him on. I said, okay, tell the world what you told me, because I had a hard time believing it. He explained it. He said, I don't know. He goes, my strength went up. My performances went up. You reduced fatigue at a very big level, and it worked. So anyway, that's not why we're here today. But I wanted to share that with you because you're principally involved in that whole process. You were one of the guinea pigs, and you guys were great. And I really enjoyed meeting you guys and having you out, especially Jen. She was a lot of fun.
Jen is a kid. She's a fun person to be around.
I know, and she, you know what? And I loved being around her too. So, but what a monster too. She, you know, I'm telling you. So, all you guys, very impressed.
I mean, Jen is still crushing it at 44 years old, still training as much as we do, and literally she was on our third team and absolutely destroying me in some workouts too in the gym, which is pretty amazing.
Well, you know, because I didn't know Jessi, so I started chasing her around to see what she's up to. I know you're a physical therapist, which is awesome. And I watched some of the workouts you guys are doing. You guys are killing it still. I mean, it's just, wow, just killing it. So that's awesome.
Thank you.
Cool space to be Invictus because, like Lauren just mentioned, we had not even 3 teams. We had 4 teams go to semifinals. So having that many people to train around does not leave you with a lot of space to not work hard.
No. Well, and I guess to some degree that can be intimidating at times, you know, where you get around people that are really killing it and you're feeling like, ooh, man, I got to step up, you know. And anyway, so here's the drill. Time's gone by. Hyrox come into the thing, and you know that I coach Hunter McIntyre, right?
Yeah.
And I've been working with Hunter for 10 years, right? And I watched him go through all these different changes in life where started out where he was, you know, all about the Spartan World Championships and this type of thing. I helped him through that. Then he decided to try to go to CrossFit, which I thought, you're out of your mind. What are you doing? And he said, and he explained to me, because I'm going to get a wild card. You're going to see. I'm going to get to the games. Sure enough, he pulls it off. And I, quite frankly, I think by luck of the draw, the way the sequence of events unfolded, they took him out early with you know, the handstand walking. That was just too much for him. And then all the endurance stuff started showing up, which was what he was banking on. He was hoping that if he got a chance to do all the endurance stuff, it's going to give him a better score. He'd be in the game longer than he was, right? But I worked with him through that period, and then a bunch of other stuff he was doing, and then all of a sudden Hyrox shows up. And then boom, he's the world champion. And by the way, he's hopefully going to win the world championships this coming, is it this weekend?
Yeah, sure this weekend.
Yeah. Saturday.
Last weekend, I guess we qualified for the competition in France. They sent us an email. Hey, go. We're like not right now. There was you know, we kind of joked that we could hop on a plane and go to France, but figured you might actually try next year. So waiting a little bit.
Well, so now that's where we're going. Okay, so I've been doing a lot of work. I'm coaching all of the people that I coach virtually now are Hyrox athletes. Not all, a lot of them are. I mean, I'm still doing some ultra distance runners, and every now and then a triathlete, and still some guys that are doing. They're still on a wing and a prayer, hoping that obstacle course racing will have a resurgence. But they're all moving towards Hyrox, which I love. By the way, I love it for a couple reasons. One, I like that it's orchestrated in such a way that it's not going to change, right? So like with obstacle course racing and even CrossFit, you don't know what you get till you get it, right? And so you got to be ready for Freddy no matter what. You just got to try and be everywhere all the time and make sure you got all the bases covered and get it done. Where I know that you're going to run 1K, you're going to get on a skier, you're going to run. It's set up in such a way that it's almost like triathlon. It's very easy to put a hook in it and figure out what to do with it, right? So I have, and by the way, the new thing is I'm still doing those triple VO2s here in Tennessee, where I'll get someone coming out, usually they're Hyrox athletes, do a gait analysis. After the gait analysis, we'll do a VO2 running. After the VO2 running, we will take the information from the VO2 and run them outside, and I'll chase them tracking the metrics to see what's really sustainable. Because data might say, well, his threshold is 150 beats per minute, and after that you got to be careful. He's going to start losing it, whatever. And I've seen people way past what would be clinically prescribed as a workout, able to sustain efforts. And Hunter McIntyre was a great example of that. And I've tested Hunter probably, I don't know how many times over the years. And I'll share with you, I've shared 1 million people this information, so he doesn't care. I found after he won world championships at Hyrox the first time, he came to me, we tested him, his VO2 score sucked. Compared to what it's been in the past, it sucked. His threshold was down 30 beats from what it was when he was doing endurance work. And he said, I've never been this fit in my entire life, right? He said, how do you account for that? I thought, wow, good question. Let's figure this out. So we started messing around with it, and we started to conclude that the way people move that lactate through their systems is very unique to the individual. You can't just assume because you've surpassed 4 millimoles of lactate from a sampling or your anaerobic threshold shoved over to a particular point that you're done. It's just not the way it works. So anyway, long story short, what I'm curious to know is that you guys are probably familiar with Lauren Weeks, world champion in Hyrox right now, came from a CrossFit background. Do you think that this is the new jam for a lot of CrossFitters?
I definitely think that Hyrox, is a great gateway for a lot of CrossFit athletes, who want that low impact, who don't want to lift heavy weights, because I think that's the one thing why a lot of people, can't keep doing CrossFit is because of the lifting and the injuries that come from about it. It's just, high impact all the time, and you don't really know what you're going to be getting when you're training. Like CrossFit Games, you're training to be the fittest at pretty much everything. So, we're doing anything and everything, but with Hyrox, all I'm doing is running, and then you have the machines, you have the sled, but you know exactly what you're getting. So I think you can really, train a little bit smarter. I still feel like with CrossFit, we're still trying to figure out what is the threshold of overtraining and, training where we can still be one of the best in our sport. But with Hyrox, I think it's a little bit easier, similar to track and field. If you're going to be an 800 meter runner, you know exactly what you're doing every single day, kind of that progression in order to run your fastest 800. So I think the same thing with Hyrox, hey, I'm going to train XYZ to get the fastest Hyrox time. But with the CrossFit Games, they can throw anything at us from heavy pig flips to heavy clean and jerks. We really don't know what we're getting. So I think that is why Hyrox, can be a good gateway for a lot of CrossFit athletes.
What's your thoughts, Jessi?
Too, and I think CrossFit has and always has been, the unknown and the unknowable. That's kind of their trademark. That's their thing. That you don't know what you're going to get, which I think it's very cool. And there's kind of a wow factor to it because every year they try to bring in a new movement and something that people can try. So there's the fun aspect of it always changing. But I think for the longevity of a sport, marathons have been around forever, and that's been the same exact distance, the same exact thing. People are always trying to break those records. I think Hyrox has something different than CrossFit, where it's a consistent workout. It has the aspects of pieces of CrossFit, but it is, like Lauren said, a little bit less impactful on your joints, and it's a little bit easier to get into. And also the season structure seems to make a little bit more sense, where it's hey, you can compete in any of these, 10 to 12 events. They're going to have one probably near you at some point. You can train for that up until that point, and then you make it to Worlds and you get to go compete there. It's a little bit easier a format than I would say a CrossFit season is. We've seen the CrossFit season change almost every single year that they've had it. And so I think it's a pretty cool, I would say almost a segue for people from CrossFit. I don't know if it would ever completely replace what CrossFit has built, but I think for, we were kind of saying while we were there, the people that usually go to local competitions where they try to kind of stay away from the high skill gymnastics or the heavy weights because they're not as attuned to doing that. Super, super great alternative. And it also allows if they're not feeling that great that weekend, they don't have to go super hard. And I think it's better, like I was kind of saying, just for longevity. So I think they kind of can coexist, but I feel that Hyrox has a bit of a different market than CrossFit in the groups that it can provide for.
Well, so here's where I'm coming from. I work with athletes that are trying to make a living in the game that they're playing, right? And it's difficult. It's difficult. And there's very, very few people, as you know, that really get to, grab the golden ring where they're actually, okay, I've arrived and now, between my endorsements and I'm winning real well right now. And, they're at that point, that pinnacle. And so Hyrox isn't there yet, but I think it's going to get there. I think it's going to get to a place where the payouts are going to be very, very entertaining. And so what I'm looking at, reminding you I'm a fly on the wall. I'm not out there doing it myself. I'm 71 years old. I'm not about to go see if I can, throw around a 450-pound sled. I'm just not going to do it. Whiskey, that's it, but but here's where I'm coming from. If I were a CrossFit athlete, let's just say that I'm a contender, okay? Somebody that's been seasoned. I've been to school, meaning that I've got a pretty good capability of moving weight. So if I looked at it from a broad stroke, I'd say, these guys are only lunging with that much weight. That farmer carries only that far and that much weight. You mean to tell me they've only got to push or pull that sled that far? And the new sleds, by the way, you didn't see the old sleds. The new sleds are easier to push and pull than the old sleds were.
Heard that, yeah.
yeah, considerably different. And I witnessed it, so I know that it's true. But I've had people that come from like obstacle course racing or some other offshoot, not from CrossFit, and they're like nervous about the weight. They're nervous about I can run, but I can't. I don't know, man. That sled's intimidating. I don't know. So they're still not. So they're trying to game up for it. And I look at CrossFitters. They could game down. They could say like, "Wow, you mean that's all I got to do? Now I just got to learn how to run." Because historically, I don't know too many CrossFitters that are good runners. And that's my jam. I coach runners, and when the CrossFitters learn how to run and they bring their strength game to the sport, do you think that there's a potential they're just going to dominate this sport? That's where I'm going with this.
I do think there are quite a few great CrossFit Games athletes who, if they switched over to Hyrox, I think they could be competing with like the best of the best. For example, if you look at like Christy Aramo, she recently just did a Hyrox, and I think she took third overall, like in the women's pro division. And I mean, Christy is also retired from CrossFit, so she's not even training at the same level that she normally was training for the CrossFit Games. And for her to go over and take third, I think is really impressive. And she's like one of the best runners in the sport. And like same thing with Kristen Holta, who's been like one of the top runners, or Sam Briggs. I think if they were to go and try Hyrox, I know they could be really good at it. And I feel like CrossFitters, we have that mentality already from the amount of training that we've done. Like, I mean, it's hard. It's a long workout. You're going for the Hyrox, it's like 50 plus minutes. So, I mean, where you can kind of catch your breath for us is at those workout stations. And then it's like, finding your groove on the run. So I do think as soon as some of the CrossFit athletes, switch over to making Hyrox a full-time thing, I think it could be really fun to watch with the other amazing Hyrox athletes.
Exactly. So that's my curiosity, is because I watched this sport unfold, and I've had the great fortune of being able to hands-on with the guy that's the best in the world in the sport right now. And the advantage that he has is that his strength component is significant enough where he can hold his own with almost anybody in the sport where the strength components are concerned. But he's also a very good runner. I mean, I'll take credit for that. I worked with him for many years to help him become a good. I flew to Malibu the other day, a month ago, to move his ground contact 15 degrees. I said, if I can bring your foot underneath you by 15 degrees from where it is right now, I'm going to take 15 seconds off every one of your 1 kilometer runs, and that's going to drop your PR by 2 minutes, which is that's a big ask. But I saw it with him, and I've only been to a couple of these events, again, as a spectator, just to see. I want to see what's going on. And I'm looking at these athletes, and most of them are pretty impressive athletes to look at. I mean, they're fit. These guys are in good shape. But there's very few of them that really have the run game organized to a point where, while they're resting in their run and storing their nuts for the exercises, they're still faster than everybody else. That's not unfolded yet. And I think Hunter's the only guy so far that's been able to do that. So I don't know. That was just kind of what I'm kicking around. Is I'm looking at it. I'm thinking, wow, if people in CrossFit said, you know what, I could probably make a living in Hyrox, and not kill myself. And
Yeah.
I mean, am I crazy?
I don't think that's crazy at all. I do just wonder, I mean, I think CrossFit itself is a bit of it's obviously different than like your regular professional sport, where you're getting paid through the sport versus getting paid through endorsements and sponsorships and things like that. So I do wonder how Hyrox would like integrate that going forward. Like if they would be more of like I almost look at CrossFit sometimes as sort of an influencer space. That's how people are able to make their money. They can train full time. And I wonder if Hyrox, wants to sort of go in that direction, or how they would end up like paying their athletes if they try to make it more of a full-time sport thing versus, the way that CrossFit does. So I know that I don't even know when they started. You probably know better than I would, but I know it was just a couple years ago. So it's cool to see them start now and to see kind of where they'll plan on taking the sport.
It's only been about 4 years from the start, and what's interesting is that they also got shut down for COVID. So Hyrox had big aspirations to have all these events in the U.S. I think they had 15 events on the calendar. All 15 of them got shut down, and then they finally held a World Championships. It was kind of the Elite 15 kind of thing that they did in Germany. And to keep the thing controlled, nobody was allowed in the building. You had to be quarantined going in. It was pretty ugly. And Hunter won that event too. So realize that they're just now getting started again. They're crushing it. And I had a conversation with, I went to the DC event a couple months ago. Because I'm in Tennessee, I said, it's critical for me to just get there and just show up. Plus I have people that are competing. I said, I got to just go there, man. I said, get off my old self and just go. And I was approached by some of the people, the management of Hyrox. I don't even know these people, right? And they said, you're Richard Diaz. I said, yeah. And they said, well, we want to meet with you. And so they dragged me off in an office someplace, and we had a long conversation. And one of the things that they wanted to talk about is trying to include me in their education. But during the conversation, they unfolded their game plan, their master plan, right? And they want to be the methodology for exercise in health clubs around the world. They want to be, this is how you exercise, this is the best way to exercise, and make it available in all the health clubs globally. And I'm like, wow, that's big. They said, we're going into Asia, and now they're in Taipei. I saw Taipei, they have a 3-day weekend of competition. So, wow. Yeah, I mean, you realize how many people that's going to be? In the UK, on an average event, you see 15,000 competitors.
That's crazy. In New York City, they said, I think there were 5,000 people competing there. And like that, I mean, you go to a CrossFit event and you have maybe 100 people to 200 people. And so those numbers were absurd. And they also said they had 6,000 spectators, which like was also really, really high, like for an event like that. And it was in New York City. It was outside. It was hot. I was like, there is no way you have 11,000 people coming through here today. But they did, and they did a great job of like the start times, moving people around, getting the spectators through so they weren't like on the course. So the way that they run it was very impressive.
Well, so absolutely. I mean, they're doing a good job with it. Now, my concern is, I reflect back on Spartan because I worked with so many of those people. Those guys screwed that up so badly.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they still got people that are owed money for payouts that they haven't paid. You know,
Wow.
and I've got one of the athletes I coach. He's a world champion in the 3K event that they do in Vermont. He's a world champion, and he went to Saudi Arabia, won 20 grand, and that was in December, and they still haven't paid him. And they keep promising that, oh well, we're going to get you, we're going to get you paid. And anyway, so they're losing their credibility. And so my thought is, plus, let's be honest with each other. You get invited to put on your events in Saudi Arabia, somebody's throwing some serious cash at you. That's not shits and giggles. Somebody's enticed you with some. Look what they did with golf. They just dominated. Now golf, they own golf, right? And plus, the CrossFit events have been in Saudi Arabia as well, right? Somebody's getting paid. And so where I'm going with this is that if they give the money back to the athletes, so let's just say that somewhere along the way in the next year or so, there's $1 million on the line if winner take all. If man or woman, you win, you get paid. Boom. Money's in escrow, you get paid. Then you're going to get some people to pay attention, right? Right now, they're saying it's the fitness for everybody. Yeah, sure. It's not the fitness for everybody. It's for people that are willing to work hard. It's not an easy. It's not like running a marathon and walking 80% of it, right? It's not. That's not what we're talking about here. That you can't just start. I'm assuming you probably could, but it's not likely that someone's going to go into a course like that expecting to walk during the run portions of the event. So I don't know. I just think that if they put the money in the right places. They have the media is going to pay attention. They're going to start getting endorsement money from Puma jumped on them, and they're going to start seeing some very serious money. Because I don't know what the spectator value is globally right now, but I have to believe it's huge, right? It's huge. I can walk around here and tell somebody that I'm working with Hyrox athletes, and they're going to think that I'm cleaning somebody's basement with a hose or something. They have no idea what I'm talking about, right?
I do think there's still a lot of people who don't really know what Hyrox is. And I mean, Jessi and I really didn't even know what we were doing like 2 days prior. We're like, what are the stations again? And then like our teammates, Chandler and Josh, were like, okay, name the stations. And I named them, but I didn't name them in the right order. And then Jessi and I, we're out there and I'm like asking Jessi, is this where we go in like on the fourth round? Like I was like confused, running past stations, and I was surprised that we still ended up winning. But yeah, I still think there is room for growth and for people to learn what Hyrox is, but it was pretty impressive to see the amount of spectators that were there just in the New York
one. Do you guys think that you'd like to get a little more serious about it as a doubles type thing?
We kind of talked about it once the invite came in and they were like, oh, you've qualified for Worlds. I kind of looked at Lauren and I was like, we don't know where it's going to be held next year, but it's probably going to be somewhere cool. The last few were in some fun places. And I was like, we should totally do that. And, I think just because of our nature, we're both pretty competitive. So I'm like, we don't want to show up and like not know what we're doing or not have.
Sure. Yeah.
So I think, I like in my brain, I'm like, oh, it's easy to, take it a little more seriously. You just have to run more. But at the same time, it's like, okay, you have to run more, which is a lot. Running is not just as simple as going out and going for a few miles of jogging every day. So I think we've talked about trying to do it. We're kind of focused on CrossFit Games until August now, but I think I could rope Lauren into being serious about it next year.
Well, it's not even about just running 8 kilometers.
Yeah.
It's going to get to a place where if you're not fast, it ain't going to work. You're going to need to drop. You're going to need to really bring it. because that's the biggest opportunity to shave off time in that event is during the run. You're going to get to a place where you're just not going to move the needle that far in a ski erg or a burpee broad jump type thing. That's not going to offer you up another solid minute or something towards your finish time. And the burpee, I remember when they first started throwing the wall ball. Just to go 100 wall balls unbroken at the end of that event was seemingly impossible. Now there's a lot of people doing it, right? But even then, you're not going to really see that much time get shaved off, But if you start pulling off, well, it depends on who. I call it the phenomenon of initial values, right? If you suck in the beginning, you got a lot of room to move, right? But if you're already pretty fast, if you could dump 10, like Hunter, if you dump 10, 15 seconds here and there off your run, it's significant. You start to make a big, big difference in your finish time, right? So I don't know. It's interesting for me. Even at my old age, I'm getting fascinated by it. I've been doing a lot of work with these guys, and they come to me and they don't realize it, but they're really guinea pigs is what they're doing when they come to see me. Sure, they're getting a gait evaluation and all this other stuff, but I'm trying stuff on them just to see what's going to happen. If like we did some heat block training, I had these guys wearing plastic suits and running outside, after every event. It was 95 degrees and they're wearing plastic suits. And I mean to tell you, they were dumping, liters of water out of the sleeves of that thing after every one of the runs they were doing. And then I would do a VO2 test on it. And I'm like, I want to see what it looks like when you're fatigued, right? Let's take a look at, it's coming in fresh is one thing,
I think that was also a thing. I know most high events take place inside, but Lauren and I did not appropriately for one, and it was outside, sun, 85 degrees. We were 3-4 laps in, and I just kind of looked. I'm like, she said something about how dehydrated she was, and I was like, same. We had like the white saliva all around.
Lips.
We were in a bad. And I don't doing hour-long workouts. Like most of our workouts at Time Domain is 5 to 15 minutes. And they had water stations, but you're trying to run, a 7:30 mile and drink a cup of water, and it just ends up pouring all over yourself. So there's a lot of appropriate strategy that I think needs to go into going to a Hyrox race as well that I don't think we took as seriously. But again, looking back on it now, I'm like, okay, you have to hydrate more. You have to have almost like when you're running a marathon, you're carb loading the nights before, the nutrition that goes into it. I think there's more that plays into that than a CrossFit workout, because usually, you can suffer through for the most part 5 to 15 minutes of doing something. But when you're 30 minutes into an hour-long workout, and I was telling Lauren, I started getting chills because I was so dehydrated that I was I was hot, but I was starting to malfunction a little bit, and I was like, oh, I'm in a bad place right now. So I think there's a way to appropriately strategize that nutrition-wise too. That's different than CrossFit.
I put a lot of energy into this concept of heat block training, which is what the Norwegians have been very big with their triathlon teams and their marathoners. And fascinating stuff. It's like when you lose a liter of sweat, your heart rate's going to go up between 10, 12, 15 beats. And your performance is going to fall off by about an equal amount percentage-wise. So when you get 30 minutes in, you could potentially lose 15% of your performance due to the heat. And there's if you don't know how to mitigate that heat, then you got a problem, right? And so I've been digging into this, and that's why I was having these guys run the suits, because I'm also using core body temperature monitors to see what's really fascinating. I can look at their core body temperature while they're training to see how cooked they're getting. I call it marinating. We're marinating these athletes to see what's sustainable, what's not, how they can control their core temperatures. And you were talking about being outside. Miami, they did a Hyrox event last year, and some of it was out on the beach, and it was hot as hell, right? And then I talked to Meg Jacoby, I think it was in DC, and I said, was it hot in here, Meg? Are you kidding me? So indoors, even worse. And you stick 6,000 competitors in there, around 4,000 people competing. You got 10,000 people in the enclosed building, and it starts to get a little muggy up in there, you know? So it's interesting. It's interesting.
I mean, Jessi, I was going to say, Jessi what was your average heart rate, Jessi, during the whole race?
184.
184?
And then her max?
My max heart rate that I hit was 214.
During the event?
Yeah, yep. It was really funny. You looked at it, I have like Garmin, so I just watched or wore that the whole time, and like it just was like around 180 literally the entire time. Right at the end, I think before the set of wall balls, I just like hardcore spiked up to 214 and then went back to like 180 and died. But yeah, 184 is my average.
Almost died for real.
Yeah.
Do you don't wear a heart rate monitor when you're doing CrossFit, do you?
I do, yeah. I wear my watch all the time, so I'm used to seeing that. That's the highest I've ever maintained a heart rate for that long. I mean, we do, sometimes we go do our track workouts or longer cardio things. I've never hit over, I think like a 205 max heart rate, I think was my prior PR, if you want to call it that. So that was definitely new. And then the 184 was quite high for me. And Lauren knows when I run, my heart rate's usually pretty high, but that was a lot.
We had recently done like 5x1K on the track in the heat right before semifinals, and Jessi was like, that was the worst workout of all time. And I think we were averaging around like 620 mile pace or whatever. I mean, it's good for us CrossFitters, probably not for like Hyrox athletes. But we were like, Jessi was dying in this workout. So we go back and forth. Some days I'm dying in the workouts in the gym, and some days Jessi is dying. But on this specific workout, Jessi had died on the track workout. She's like, that was the worst workout ever. And then now, literally like 3 weeks later, we went and did, this Hyrox event with like 8x1K. So it's just fun. And then you get no rest really in between. And it's just interesting to see like after certain stations, like I noticed after like the sled push station, my legs were like a little wobbly. And then you have to like go into the run after like feeling like a little wobbly from that. And like just noticing too, like I felt like on the row station, I felt like Jessi and I both were pretty comfortable with that. Like we came off pretty smooth, but certain ones where it definitely, your heart rate stays elevated going into that run.
Yeah, well, this is the kicker for most people. You realize that the sport is so new. There's nobody that has it figured out, right? Yeah. Everybody's just, it's really ironic to me too. Is like you could throw a rock and hit 15 Hyrox coaches right now. Everybody's a damn coach. And I'm like, hey, you haven't figured it out yet. How do you get in front of it and start telling people what they ought to be doing or not doing? All they have is a study one, their own experience, and okay, I do it this way, so do it my way, and you're going to be fine. But a lot of people are segregating their work. They might go to the track and do a bunch of track workouts, but they're not putting together the exercise in the middle, right? And that's what kills you. It's like you were just saying, your legs are wobbly. You got to learn how to do that. Triathlon was like that. I don't know if you've ever done a triathlon, but you get off the bike. If you've been on the bike hard, your legs are not there for you. It takes a good bit of time before you start getting your legs back underneath you.
I did a triathlon in Hamburg. Actually, did the world some triathlon in Hamburg, Germany last summer with my husband Rasmus, and I remember it was the international distance, and I remember getting off of the bike and like my legs, were like not moving. I could not move any faster. I felt like my hip flexors were so tight, and I was like, my legs can't go any faster, even if I wanted them to.
Right, and and you think it's over, and then eventually it starts coming together for you, and you get able to run again. But trust me, I've been down that road a million times. But this is what when I orchestrate workouts for the people I work with, there's rarely a time where it's just running. Unless they needed to really build their stripes on the run because they just don't run well at all. I have a thing I call the Pain K 400s. We do 2400s on the track, and you do a 400 and you walk 200. So the blessing is, oh man, I get to walk for 200. And then you get right back in it. But there's a benchmark number you got to try to stay with. And just depending on the caliber of the athlete. So I'll have guys do like a 115 is their goal for the 400s, and then they'll do the 2400s with the 200-meter walk, and then when that's done, then they got to run a mile for time. And I've got one of my clients he's in France right now. He's 52 years old, and he ran. For him, the number was 130. I said, get your 400s under 130. He runs them at 125, and then after 20 of those, he ran a 6-minute flat mile.
Dang, that's great.
Yeah, and he messaged me from France the other day, and because he went into all these gyms are just packed. All the CrossFit boxes in Nice are packed with all these Hyrox people right now. He goes, dude, I am so intimidated. These guys are ripped. He goes, I'm this 50-year-old man in here, I'm like, oh my God, what am I doing here? I said, dude, they cannot run 2400s like you can. I said,
nope.
That's impressive.
Yeah, it's not bad, right?
Yeah.
But anyway, well, I would love to see you guys race. I would like to, actually, I think I'd like to see you do solos, to be honest with you. I
was telling Jessi, I think both of us after the race, I don't want to do that by myself.
Yeah. I think we're also in the space too, though, where Lauren and I work out together all the time. So I'm so used to having her next to me that I'm like, if I had to go against her, I'd probably just cry. So
I feel like, especially since Jessi and I are training team for the CrossFit Games, I feel like we just push each other to be better. And it's different when you're by yourself. I mean, it's just you against you. And so, I mean, it's okay to slow down. But then when you have your other partner with you, you don't really want to be the person slowing down. So it's almost harder to be with your teammate to actually push to another level.
Well, I'm not saying it's not legit. I'm just saying that I have people that they tiptoe into the sport by doing a team thing, right? They bring somebody in, they're going to share the work, and I suck at this, so you take more of that than me, and they do it like that. But I said some days you just got to pony up and just got to brave the thing and just do it. And I don't know, but anyway, I don't really have much else I wanted to talk about. I just wanted to get you. I was so excited when I saw that you guys had actually done the event, and then I saw you actually won in the pro division for mixed or for the doubles. I said, that's freaking awesome. And then that's when I'm going to get a hold of Lauren right now. I'm going to get around and find out what's going on, because that could be your new jam.
Maybe.
You know what? Just all funniness aside, I know your business. I know what you're into. I think that's huge for you. I mean, for you, your business model to get access to that space, and for those people to get access to you, I think it just could be pretty darn entertaining. That's all.
Thank you, Richard.
That's all I'm saying about that. I just think, and that's the first thing I thought is, wow, Growing Strong is going to get strong real quick, because yeah. Go ahead.
I mean, Hyrox is accessible towards everyone, and it's the same thing with Growing Strong. I'm trying to, make a fitness program that is accessible towards women, no matter who you are. And so I feel like, Hyrox is that sport where it could be really great. I was actually just thinking it could be fun, to get a group together within the Growing Strong community. Let's train for a Hyrox and do a little program, and then, do a little meetup where everyone does a Hyrox together. That could be a lot of fun.
You know what that'll turn into on a global level? I'm serious when I tell you.
You're throwing great ideas, Richard.
Listen, I've been around. When I see opportunity, I'm like, wait a minute. But I thought that was a great idea. Listen, long story short, I'm very pleased to have you both. I want you to say hello to my friend Jen. I've not talked to her in many moons. And it was a pleasure meeting you, Jessi.
Yeah, it's a pleasure meeting you too. I'm super glad to be on here and to chat with you. I'm hopefully get here and maybe see you at a Hyrox event.
I'm going to Saturday. I'm going to go there's an event in Nashville. It's called the Gauntlet. You familiar with this?
No.
It's a doubles thing. They put on the Fit Games, the Nashville Fit Games. You heard of this?
I feel like I'd maybe seen it, but I don't recall what it is.
Try to imagine, it's kind of like if you took CrossFit And then Hyrox, way over here, it's in the middle. So all the strength components are way harder than Hyrox, but a little more running than CrossFit.
I feel like I've heard of it.
Yeah, one of my friends has a training facility here, and he puts it on. And so I kind of got involved with him a little bit. I'm just impressed with how strong. They do an over-the-shoulder thing with a 150-pound slam ball for 30 repetitions after 120 calories on the assault bike after 600 meters worth of running. So they have 4 10-minute blocks that they do, and the best times of each of those blocks collectively wins. Brutal. Last year they did, there was an event they did where you had to do, the girls had 45-pound dumbbells, 70 repetitions bench press. Something like that.
Wow.
Yeah, it was ugly. It was ugly. First of all, I don't understand how they got a bench press into the competition to begin with. But the guys were using like 75-pound dumbbells. I mean, some of the exercise they do is like, whoa, that's ugly. That's really hard. But they've got some animals that train there. But anyway, long story short, I'm going to go check out that functional fitness competition. I'm going to be in. I haven't made up my mind. I'm either going to go to Chicago or I'm going to go to Dallas, the next Hyrox thing. Thinking probably Dallas because I did Chicago already. But
you should come to the CrossFit Games, August 8th to 10th. Come watch us.
Where?
In Fort Worth, Texas.
Oh, it is?
Yeah, first time there.
August, huh? Cowtown. You ever been to Fort Worth?
Yeah, it's supposed to be. We'll see how that goes. I'm sure they're gonna have something outside, but they'll probably make us run there. So it'll be exciting to watch.
Yeah, I went to Cowtown, they call it, right? Because the stockyards used to be in Fort Worth. That's where they had traded cattle years ago, and that's where Billy Bob's is and all that cowboy stuff, right? And the place smelled like cow shit, It's like,
Probably still done.
Looking forward to that.
yeah, so if you're having to run outside, remember me.
Yeah.
All right, girls. Thank you so much. I appreciate you. And, I'm going to get this up and probably by tomorrow, next day.
Thanks, Richard.
Take care.
Thank you.
Yeah.